The views, comments, and opinions of the following program do not necessarily reflect those of Morris Media Studios, MorrisMediaLive.com, or its affiliates. Listener discretion is advised.
Blessed 2020 to you. We want to welcome you today to Faith Without Borders. I'm your host, Pastor Calvin Sauls. We've crossed over into a new year, and not just that, but into a new decade. So this is the beginning of a new year, a new decade, and certainly we are excited that you've joined us once again as we kick off our first show for 2020. And today we are going to be looking at tackling, exploring what's going on in Puerto Rico with our brothers and sisters, our relatives, our kin over there. And so today's show is entitled Puerto Rico Rising Through Resiliency and Solidarity. And our goal today is to provide you with some information about what's going on in Puerto Rico, but also to share with you how you can support the work that several of our organizations that I work with, they've already done, and we are in the process of organizing some more opportunities for how to support the resiliency of our sisters and brothers in Puerto Rico. And this is all as we unite and come together in solidarity to support them and to walk and work with them towards the rising of Puerto Rico. If you didn't know, on December the 28th, several earthquakes struck Puerto Rico, and this certainly has devastated the island in so many ways, destabilized communities, as well as because of all of the ongoing aftershocks. Homes, schools, infrastructure has been destroyed, and almost 2/3 of the island is without power right now. And several communities are left vulnerable and without basic supplies as well as shelter. And so, as you can see, not too long after Hurricane Maria, Puerto Rico has once again experienced devastation. But we are people of hope, and our commitment is to be with our sisters and brothers in Puerto Rico and hit them as hard as we can with a hope that is overcoming, because they are a resilient people, and we want to stand in solidarity with them as we come together to work on this. And so today we are joined by our colleagues, as well as several folk who are currently in Puerto Rico on the frontline communities close to the epicenter, as well as others who have just returned from Puerto Rico and or whose family is in Puerto Rico, coming together and working together around this. So that's how we're kicking off 2020 in the midst of devastation. We're kicking it off with celebrating hope, resiliency, and solidarity. We believe that Puerto Rico will rise again because of the people there and because of their power, their resiliency, as well as work that continues over there. So today it is a joy for me to welcome a dear friend and a colleague, Denise Collazo. She's going to join us via Skype, and I hope that we are able to pull her up for this conversation. We are working on that. But Denise has been a colleague and a friend for over 20 years. Really appreciate her leadership in faith-based community organizing. She's one of the best community organizers in the country, and she is Senior Advisor with Faith in Action National Network. Faith in Action is the country's largest faith-based community organizing network. She is Puerto Rican. She has family and friends in Puerto Rico, and she has been leading Faith in Action's response to Hurricane Maria, and now the earthquakes that hit, a couple of weeks ago. And so I'm so glad that she's able to be with us, and looking forward to her sharing perspective, information, and also sharing with us what we've already been able to accomplish, during this time of devastation around that. So let's see if we have Denise. Laurent, you still working on that? So Laurent is still working on that for us. We also will be joined by Pastor Juan Carabello, and he's going to join us from San German, Puerto Rico, to share with us what's been going on with his faith community in San German and the courageous and compassionate work that they've been, doing in San German. San German is located real close to the epicenter, of one of the earthquakes, and so he's going to be talking to us around just the resiliency there, how people continue to pull together and work together, to make sure that we facilitate compassion and restoration in that community. So looking forward, to that. As Laurent work on getting them on line for us, we just want to share with our sisters and brothers in Puerto Rico that nothing can separate you from the love of God, not even natural disasters such as Hurricane Maria and now these earthquakes. So it is key for our sisters and brothers in Puerto Rico to know, and as well those who are in the diaspora, because we know this can be a vulnerable time, for all of you as well. But we're glad that we are connected with several organizations, nationally and locally, who are working in solidarity, with what's happening at the grassroots level of Puerto Rico. And so we're going to be having some of those folk on. I'm glad to be connected with the solidarity movement with our folk here in Los Angeles, as well as with the International Society of Black Latinos, and then Faith in Action, of course, and then also our work with the Compassion for the Caribbean humanitarian initiative that emanates from the Links Incorporated from right here in Southern California. So we're looking forward to just connecting with all of these folk. We're grateful for their support, and we know that they are all basically standing by to see how they can support the work that we are doing, the work that we seek to do. We're in this for the long haul. This is not going to be, just a one-time, effort or a drive-by, effort. It is an effort to walk and work with our kinfolk in Puerto Rico towards restoration and for them to get back on their feet and move them from vulnerability to vitality, and to let them know that we can connect with their resiliency and facilitate, vitality and equity. I did say equity because we know that some of the challenges that we face in Puerto Rico is structural. It is political. And that's part of just the long-term work that we seek to be a part of, in terms of just transforming, a challenging and a ineffective and a corrupt political system that we have in Puerto Rico, to try and see how that in itself can be transformed, and how we can challenge, the U.S. government to see how we can be more responsive, to what's needed, in Puerto Rico, around continuing to build that community, rebuild that community, restore that community, and of course relaunch it, as a beloved community, so that it can be and become what God has intended for it to be. That's what it's about for us here at Faith Without Borders, is to see how we can, accompany, individuals, communities, and countries, as they go through, challenging times, reminding them that, in the midst of hopelessness, there is hope. And when we allow love to lead, we can be more than conquerors in the work that we've been called to do. So that's why today's show, is named Puerto Rico Rising through Resiliency and Solidarity. So we're very, very excited about that. I'm going to check again with Laurent to see if we, have connected with our guests at this time, so we can bring them on and continue our conversation around that. Okay, so let's see, Laurent, who do we have on, so that we can bring them on and hear their voices as we. Okay, so Denise, are you there?
Yes, Reverend Sauls.
Denise, thanks so much for joining us. I know that you are in Tampa, Florida. I introduced you a little earlier on as a friend for over 20 years, and one who has certainly accompanied me in this work of faith-based community organizing while we were together in San Francisco. So I'm so glad for our relationship and our partnership over these years. And glad now to be able to continue our work together, as we, look at the place, that is near and dear to your heart, that is Puerto Rico, where you are from, and I believe where families, I know your husband's family, is also from there, and he might be there as we speak. But thanks so much for your leadership and your partnership on this, in terms of that. So, I know that you have been convening us, and you've been, in touch with so many of our folk, in Puerto Rico. Do you want to just share with us right now some information around what are the conditions of some of our communities, just the state of mind, of our folk as a result of, the earthquakes? Because we know that Puerto Ricans are not necessarily, used to earthquakes. I mean, that's kind of a California thing, and around that. So This is kind of something new for them, and so we know that it has probably caused a lot of trauma, for a lot of people. But why don't you, just share with us a little bit about, what's going on and where we are.
Definitely. Thank you very much, Reverend Sauls, for the introduction. And it's been great to be on the journey towards justice with you over the years as well. I think in terms of what's happening in Puerto Rico, my parents are there right now, so I'm hearing from them what's happening. But in general, what has happened is that Puerto Rico is not generally equipped for earthquakes. They don't usually get earthquakes. You and I both have experience living in California, where it's a lot more frequent, a lot more expected. We kind of know what's happening, and we know what to do when an earthquake hits. Mm-hmm. Puerto Rico, since the earthquakes happened, and there's been several hundred earthquakes that have happened since the end of December. Mm. And the much of the construction is built for winds and water and rain. Many homes are on stilts, on concrete block stilts. And so earthquake comes along, and it's just tumbling houses, schools, etc.
Yes.
So as soon as the earth started moving on that Tuesday morning, I started getting phone calls and texts and emails, well, mostly texts and phone calls from family members, just letting us know it was happening. That my father, who spent 35 years in California, said it was the scariest thing he'd ever experienced because it was so violent, the shaking. And he had been part of the Loma Prieta earthquake in San Francisco. So the first people we heard from were our partners in Loíza. They have our community leaders, women, as often is the case, women play the role of convener and holder of culture in many communities, and it's the same in our culture, and I believe your culture. And a couple of the women started calling us because they were being evacuated due to the tsunami warning. And Loíza is on the northeast corner of the island, not exactly where in Guanica, where the earthquakes hit, but that community, very reminiscent of New Orleans, is below sea level. And if there were a tsunami, there would be no exit route for people to get out. And so they were calling, asking for emergency assistance, backpacks, including a bunch of things that would be basic survival items to keep people safe, and kits and blood glucose monitors and really very simple things, pre-prepared meals so that people can have food. And so they asked us at Faith in Action and our partners for help, and we put it out there to the network of community of faith and people of moral courage who want to do what's right and what's good. And we were able to collect resources to provide around 35 or so life-saving backpacks with all the equipment fully equipped, and that will provide, the community themselves have several hundred families, but those 35 or 40 backpacks, however many we are able to fully put together, will be life-saving and very helpful. So that's what we've done with you and with others, and then we have relationships with pastors in Ponce who are currently housing and feeding hundreds of people. And I believe Pastor Juan Caraballo is going to join us via telephone. And he's based in San Germán, which is also very close to Guanica, which is the center of where the earthquake activity has been happening.
Right. And I believe we do have Pastor Juan on. I want to bring him on in a minute. But Danalise, Davila, who is in Loíza, she said if a tsunami were to hit, which is of course when we have these aftershocks, that's what it can trigger, is a tsunami. So that's why this sense of vulnerability is just so challenging for us. She says if a tsunami were to hit Loíza, very few people would survive. And so that is just what we're dealing with here. And we would want to say to folk that these relief, bags that we've worked on, our hope is to get, some of these bags to our folk there sometime next week, because we've had some generous folk who've responded, to the needs, and really, these backpacks, which only, add up to about $150, would be like work gloves, first aid kits, batteries, LED flashlights, emergency meal portions, emergency solar, a portable radio with USB phone chargers, glucose meters, whistles, insect repellent. These items were pulled together by our folk on the ground, and that's what I just love about Denise, just the grassroots effort that we're having in collaboration, with leaders such as Danalise and others who are just doing a tremendous job around that. We've been with the folk of Loíza since the hurricane. Do you want to say a little bit about, I know you were down there, you connected with them, just some beautiful people, extraordinary leaders. around. Just say a little bit about Luisa, and then we're gonna bring in Pastor Juan, and we can talk about San Germán.
Okay, beautiful. The thing that I loved so much about Danalise and also her kind of friend and colleague Kenny Diaz, both women are women who are leading in their communities. It's clear when you spend any time with them in the neighborhood that they are leaders. Kenny, she put together a computer learning center for the community. She got engineers from Chicago to come down and design a building and build a building. They asked for some help with computers. But what I noticed that struck me the most was that the computer learning center was up and running while Kenny's own house was still being rebuilt after the hurricane. It's this selfless, clear, other people's first type of leadership that is so powerful and makes you want to support, reinforce, and do everything within your power to offer help, love, and support to the folks who are really in charge, large and in charge in their own community. Loíza is the community where after slavery and even before slavery ended in Puerto Rico, where a lot of former slaves left, and they settled in a portion of the island that was not able to be farmed, and they moved there to just live a peaceful life. And over many years, it's a very tight-knit community. And since the hurricane hit, it's been inundated with flooding. And Kenny and Danalise are leaders who are leveraging every single connection that they have, from LA to New York to the other side of the island to Florida, wherever. We are very much supportive of their leadership. And the community itself, they have a community center they're trying to rebuild. They're trying to build a community garden there. The only walking track in the neighborhood of La 23 is walking around the cemetery. And Annalise and Kenny want to change that. So beautiful people, very, just the kind of leaders that I aspire one day to be able to be.
Yeah. No, that's just so beautiful. I can't wait to get to Luisa. I've heard about Danalise and Kenny and them, so I'm looking forward to getting there at some point to just go and see about them as we continue our work together. This, of course, is this is a long-term commitment that we have, and that's why it is a bottom-up approach that we are using. Because we believe that, the solutions are with the folk and we can just come alongside them. I mean, you shared the innovation, the creativity, but most of all the resiliency, of the people there. So that's just what's so great about that. Another leader that is in San Germán is Pastor Juan Caraballo. And so glad that he's able to join us. And I'm going to try and see if we can get him on the phone. Do we have him there, Laron? Pastor Juan?
Sí, Dios lo bendiga.
Hola.
He said, God bless you.
Yes. So we're going to do a translation piece here, which is wonderful because it is so important for us as we do this work to really invite people's voices into this relief effort, and I'm so glad that Pastor Juan is here, and so we welcome you.
Pastor, este es el reverendo Kelvin Sauls, y él me pidió que yo le tradujera, y porque queremos que los que están escuchando el programa de radio y de video, que escuchen la voz suya.
Okay.
¿Está bien?
Sí.
Okay.
So
¿Puedo hablar ahora?
He's asking if you want him to start now.
Yes, if you could just tell us a little bit about his community of faith, and the challenges that they are facing, and just how can we support the efforts that he's already leading in his community.
El reverendo está preguntando si usted podría dar un poquito de informe sobre lo que de su comunidad de fe, los retos que están encontrando en estos días y lo que realmente están experimentando ahora mismo con la cuestión de los temblores. Así, gracias por su liderazgo y sí, ahora sí nos puede dar sus palabras.
Sí. Antes que nada, quiero agradecer la oportunidad, ¿verdad?, que me están brindando de poder expresarme y poder ser un atalaya, poder anunciar las necesidades que está pasando nuestro pueblo en estos momentos. Quisiera también informar que en medio de toda esta crisis confiamos en un Dios que nos va a levantar, confiamos en un Dios que va a hacer grandes cosas. Ahora mismo nuestro Puerto Rico está enfrentando una situación de constantes terremotos. Los terremotos son muy, muy constantes. Estamos hablando de que nuestro terremoto mayor fue de 6.4 con una réplica de 6 puntos o más. Y esto lo que ha ocasionado es que la zona, tanto la zona del sur de Puerto Rico como en todo Puerto Rico se han sentido esos terremotos, pero la zona devastada ha sido el sur de Puerto Rico, especialmente Yauco, la ciudad de Yauco, Guánica y Guayanilla son las ciudades más devastadas. No obstante, pueblos cercanos también, ahí está San Germán, Lajas, Sabana Grande, tenemos la ciudad de Peñuelas, tenemos también ciudad de Ponce, donde estamos viendo personas que están siendo desalojadas de sus viviendas porque no tienen un lugar donde vivir. Han habido sobre más de 400 a 500 casas con un desastre total. Tenemos personas durmiendo en las calles sin número.
Un momentito, pastor, ¿podría traducirle?
Sí, cómo no, seguro.
Okay. So first of all, Pastor Caraballo would like to thank you for the opportunity. It's like a lifeline. The community has been experiencing tremendous needs, but he believes in that God will lift us up and do great things. And Puerto Rico has been experiencing constant earthquakes. The strongest one was 6.4 and the more recent one was 6.0. Everyone on the island has felt the earthquakes. In fact, I was in Puerto Rico the week of 25th through the 31st, and I felt a couple of 2.5 earthquakes, and I said, whoa, that's strange. But they've mostly affected the southern zone in Puerto Rico, even though everyone has felt them. The towns of Yauco, Guánica, Guayanilla have been the most affected, and his church is in San Germán. Other communities that have been very seriously affected include Lajas, Sabana Grande, Peñuelas, and Ponce. People have been basically put out of their homes because the homes are not built to be earthquake safe. There's over 400 people who are, basically sleeping in the streets, sleeping on air mattresses, etc. Okay.
Estamos hablando de que todos los días cada ciudad tiene sobre más de 1,000 refugiados, teniendo una totalidad en la isla de aproximadamente sobre más de 6,000 personas refugiadas, esperan en sitios abiertos para que cuando venga el nuevo terremoto, que esa réplica, lo que llamamos réplica, ellos pues puedan estar seguros. Hoy, ahora mismo, por las noches aumenta la cantidad de refugiados porque las personas se sienten más seguras en sitios abiertos, espacios abiertos como un parque y no dentro de su hogar, dentro de un edificio. Hemos visto edificios que están agrietados, que no tienen la autorización por el gobierno de que las personas vivan. El terremoto ha dañado cientos de edificios también, con enormes grietas donde las personas están fuera, están sin hogar ahora mismo.
Okay. He said that, actually, I got the number wrong. Every day, many of these cities that I just mentioned have over 1,000 people who are refugees, who are, he said it's approximately 6,000 people right now who are sleeping and living in places outside. That way, when the next aftershocks hit, people feel much more safe and secure to be, especially at night, outside sleeping than inside their home and worried that their home is going to fall down upon them. There are hundreds of buildings that are hundreds of buildings that have been damaged, and there are many people right now who have become homeless.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
La ventaja que estamos teniendo es que la parte del norte de Puerto Rico ha sido la menos afectada, solamente ha sentido fuertes movimientos, pero no hay desastres de edificios, por lo que la ayuda inmediata que se está recibiendo son del mismo pueblo de Puerto Rico que vienen del norte, compran las cosas y las llevan hacia el sur, porque en el sur ahora mismo no se puede conseguir alimentos, en el sur hace falta alimentos, agua, la gente pide agua, mucha agua, en algunos sitios no hay energía eléctrica, por lo que esto complica aún más las cosas, pero la ayuda que estamos recibiendo es de la parte norte de Puerto Rico, que tienen que viajar para poder ayudar al sur.
Okay. What he said is one big advantage this time with the earthquakes that's different than the hurricanes is that even though the northern portions of Puerto Rico felt the shaking, there was not a lot of damage. And so much of the immediate aid that is coming to the southern part of the island is coming from the brothers and sisters in the north, in the northern part of Puerto Rico, which is beautiful.
That's
and he
great.
said that right now in the southern portions of the island, it's very hard to buy food. People need water, and most places don't have electricity. So it's been one good thing to see that immediate aid is coming from our kinfolk that are up the road. So that is a beautiful thing. And that is the other thing I would add, and I'll translate this back to Pastor Jose, is that at least the communications are working, the phones and text, so that we know we can get information back and forth. Lo que yo le decía también, Pastor, es que esta vez, diferentemente como el huracán, por lo menos ahora tenemos comunicación de celular y texto, etcétera, y nos podemos comunicar un poco mejor que después de María.
Eso ha sido definitivamente uno de los milagros que Dios ha establecido. No obstante, te tengo que confirmar que a veces con el internet tenemos algunos problemas, pero la comunicación telefónica pues se ha mantenido, gracias al Señor.
Yes, he said that's one miracle that God has brought, is that the phone service is working. The internet's a little iffy, but thank God for the phone. Reverend Sauls, do you have any other questions that you'd like to ask?
Yeah, I was just going to ask, if Pastor Juan can just maybe let us know what are some of the immediate needs, that community has, as we, draw our conversation to a close.
Pastor Caraballo, vamos a llevar esta conversación a un final, pero antes de eso, el Pastor Sauls le está preguntando si usted podría señalar cuáles son las necesidades más urgentes ahora mismo en su comunidad y en su comunidad de fe.
Sí, en nuestra comunidad ahora mismo las necesidades más apremiantes son, necesitamos agua, suministro, artículos de primera necesidad, ya que tenemos muchas personas durmiendo en las calles, y adicional a eso hay un gran pánico en la ciudad. Lo que vamos a necesitar mucho de psicólogos que nos ayuden para atender el área emocional del país. Actualmente, después, a largo plazo, habría que trabajar con las viviendas, porque hay mucha gente que está sin hogar, pero como los terremotos todavía siguen sucediendo, pues la gente no le presta importancia a sus hogares, lo que quiere es la preservación de la vida. Pero necesidades apremiantes, necesitamos agua, suministros que incluyan artículos de primera necesidad también, y mucha ayuda para atender el área emocional, ya que hay un gran pánico en todo el país.
Okay, gracias. He said the main needs right now are water, first aid, basic kind of personal supplies, and there is a tremendous feeling of panic amongst people. And so there's going to be a need for emotional health psychologists, people who can come and provide that kind of counseling. While the island is still shaking, people are worrying less about their homes and more about their lives. And so at this point, that's what the greatest need is. But long term, there's going to be help. Folks are going to need help with rebuilding the housing.
Yeah. So we want to just thank, Pastor Juan Carabeo for joining us from San Germán, and just assure him of our prayers and our partnership as we continue to organize and mobilize some strategies to be supportive, of our folk who are right there at the epicenter. And so, Denise, if you can just share that with him, that what he has shared with us has moved our hearts. And we're grateful for that initial miracles, and we want to try and see how we can leverage those miracles, for ongoing hope and resiliency, for our brothers and sisters in, San Germán.
Pastor Juan, el Pastor Sauls dice que le ha movido el corazón y ha movido los corazones nuestros, está en nuestras oraciones. Usted puede contar con nuestro apoyo y estamos trabajando para que te llegue más ayuda, y queremos que ustedes se mantengan la esperanza, y le damos gracias a Dios por los milagros que se han dado, y esperamos ver más de lo que el Señor va a hacer con nosotros. Así, gracias, pastor, y Dios lo bendiga.
Amén. Oren mucho por todos y agradecemos siempre toda la ayuda que nos puedan brindar. Y por último, quisiera que mantuvieran a todo el cuerpo pastoral en nuestras oraciones, porque estamos ayudando a vidas que realmente también nuestra familia está en esa necesidad. Tenemos mucha gente, aún nuestras madres, nuestros padres, nuestra familia también está en la calle de muchos de los pastores, y con todo eso estamos ayudando a nuestra gente. Y solamente agradecería que también incluyeran al cuerpo pastoral en las oraciones, y muchas gracias nuevamente por toda la ayuda que nos puedan estar brindando. Muchas gracias. Dios los bendiga.
Amen. He just said he also asked for us to pray for his fellow clergy people, because they're ministering, but they also have, he himself has his own family sleeping in the streets,
yes.
As do many of the other pastors. So thank you. He's very grateful for the opportunity and appreciates the support. Yeah. Thank you, Reverend Sauls.
Yes, tell him we're going to pray with our eyes open, and to continue to walk towards long-term partnership, and lavish hope upon them during this difficult time.
El pastor dice que vamos a orar, pero con los ojos abiertos.
Amén.
Amen.
Denise,
okay, gracias.
Denise, thanks so much. That was powerful just to hear, from, Pastor Juan speaking on behalf of his people, and this is all part of, how we seek to, bring voice to the challenges that people are going through. Hear from them, and then to see how we can, facilitate, support and solidarity around it. So thanks so much for your leadership and your partnership. I'm glad that we're in this together, and I can't wait for you to take me around, on the island, that you are so familiar with, and see how we can continue to do our work. Any final words you have?
Just grateful for the partnership, grateful for all the support that's already been shown, and looking forward to how our people are going to respond in a powerful way, like you said, to hit people hard with love and compassion.
Yes. Thanks so much. God bless you. Much love. And
God bless you.
We'll be in touch as we continue to work together, Denise. Again, that's Denise Collazo. She is, with Faith in Action, doing tremendous work, through Faith in Action. She's one of the senior advisors there. But she's a bad faith-based community organizer, and I speak from experience from all the work we've been able to do in San Francisco, and then of course, Pastor Juan right there from San German. We're going to take a quick break here at Faith Without Borders, and when we come back, we're going to connect with another group of folk right there at the epicenter to see how we can get some more information to facilitate mobilization of compassion as we pray for and partner with Puerto Rico Rising through Resiliency and Solidarity. We'll be right back. Welcome back to Faith Without Borders. I'm your host, Pastor Calvin Sauls. So glad that you're able to join us today. We continue our conversation around the ongoing challenges in Puerto Rico, especially as it relates to the natural disasters that has afflicted the island. We know there is a political disaster going on, but we'll talk about that another time. But for now, we want to just deal with the fact that our sisters and brothers, relatives, kinfolk in Puerto Rico are truly being challenged right now due to the recent earthquakes that actually continues, on the island. And in our last segment, we talked with Denise Collazo from Faith in Action, who is Puerto Rican, and working with us around relief efforts from a grassroots empowerment community organizing perspective. And we had Pastor Juan with us from San Germán, and just a powerful conversation. We are going to turn now to another community that is directly affected by these earthquakes, and that is the Taino community, which is an indigenous community in Puerto Rico. And so glad that we're able to make this connection, for coordination, collaboration, for solidarity, and for hope. And I'm just so glad that we have Teresa Lugo with us. She just returned from Puerto Rico, right there, having spent some time with the Taino community. And she is doing some extraordinary work, with the organization that is about Puerto Rico eco-agriculture organizing. It's a nonprofit called Land Heart. And I want to just see, Teresa, are you there so we can bring you on? There she is. Hi. Teresa. Hola.
Hola.
I know you must be exhausted. You just got back from Puerto Rico. And let me just commend you on your resiliency, your commitment, to the people of Puerto Rico, and a shining example of, what we can do as folk who are in the diaspora, reaching back to sisters and brothers, kinfolk, relatives, during these difficult and dark times. So your light is shining bright, and so glad that we are able to connect, during this time. You are in Tampa right now, so you in Florida, and
I am.
Yes.
So I am.
I know you've been, with the Taino community there. But before we do, that, maybe you can just tell us a little bit about who you are, and just,
Sure.
the Land Heart, this nonprofit that you are part of, the Land Heart Project. Maybe tell us a little bit about that, and
Sure.
then we want to get into, just this beautiful, a community of indigenous people in Puerto Rico called the Taino people, and just learn more about them, how the earthquakes has affected them, and how we can just support them during this time of recovery. But Teresa, just tell us a little bit about you.
So I'm a mother of two. That's the first and most important thing, the best gift I've ever received in my entire life. Yeah. And once my children were born and gone and, just started their own lives, I decided to start mine. So I retired from the fashion industry. I had a couple stores in Chicago. Went to Puerto Rico because God told me to. Mm-hmm. I have a home there. My parents have always taken us there as children every summer. So although I was born and raised in Chicago, I'm a true Chicagoan, but my blood is a Taina warrior princess, I call myself. Mm. Now that I have the time to really tap into that side of myself. And while I was at home, after I retired, I just started writing the book that God asked me to write. Mm. He gave me the name, and he said exactly that I had needed to go to Puerto Rico to write it, so I did. And in the process of doing that, we went through Hurricane Maria, and that was one of the most devastating times of my life. I had never experienced anything like that, and thank God my house made it, and my spirit told me, go and help. So after 9 days of my family not knowing if I made it, my daughter got a hold of me, or I got a hold of her, and the first thing I told her, I was like, of course, after all the tears, letting her know I was okay, I said, I need you to help me help the people. She was like, are you sure you don't want to come home, Mom? Come to me. It's okay. I was like, Steph, I need to help the people. I need you to start a GoFundMe. And so that's how that journey started. So we fed over 1,500 families. We brought in like 4 40-foot containers of supplies from Chicago. So I just really went into gear mode. It's time to come in and just assist. And God, really, I mean, I yielded myself to the Spirit, and that's how I was led. So, and I met this amazing donor who gave me a great amount of money to make a difference in people's lives. And he's just an angel today to me. That's all. God provides, right? So, so after that, after giving, I decided that my spirit was telling me that's not all of it. And sure enough, once I sat with my donor, he said, what are you going to do now? That's just a Band-Aid. And I was like, oh, God. So I met this young woman before I left Puerto Rico. I was going back to Chicago to go back to my old life. And her and I started talking about the farmers. And we both were speaking the same language. So we stayed in touch. I was in Chicago. I had a job to do in Israel and Jerusalem. And her and I just started to create this wonderful plan to assist the farmers. And as God would have it, that's exactly what happened. So that's basically how Land and Heart Project became what it is today. You know, and it's a duty and purpose of Land and Heart Project through agricultural renewal, farm restoration, educating, and coordinating volunteers based on their initiatives. The enduring effects of the 2017 hurricane took over 18 million trees. I mean, that's a big, huge number. That took all of it, and the vegetation was gone. So we just jumped into that, and then from there, I met the Taínos.
Yeah.
And that was a fluke, I'll tell you. Of course it was, but God orchestrated that again. And then I really wanted to know myself deeper. I wanted to know who I was, and they opened their hearts to me. And I went to a few of their full moon ceremonies, and I just love their spirit. Their indigenous spirit is so pure and so welcoming, so loving. Yeah. It was like coming from Chicago and that fast-paced stuff. I just needed to be nurtured. And I think I was nurtured through that experience, really, to be able to get in touch with that part of me that's Taína. Because all of us, I mean, there's like 67% of us that are Taíno by our maternal blood. Right. It's just factual. We can't, unless you drain that blood, you're not going to, be able to get away with it.
Right.
So once you tap into it, then you start learning more and more about yourself. And I'm just honored to have reverence for our ancestors as we should, just like we have reference to God. Our ancestors also shaped us to who we are today. So
absolutely, yeah.
That's really all of it. And right. I just really, my heart said, these people, my people, they need help. Maria flattened their school, took their home and flattened it. So I would always go over there. I would bring people over there to see if we can find the right fit. And they're very respectful. They don't want someone just to give them money. Like, they've had that opportunity. They want someone or an organization that would just wrap their arms around the sacredness of it. Because where the school is situated, you will see that there's like shells from the Indians in the 1400s, 1800s. You could see the shells on the floor of that sacred ground. And there's so much sacredness in that area that it's historical.
Yeah.
So they just wanted to find a good relationship with someone that can honor that and get that. So it's really cool to have met you, and I'm excited.
Well, I was born and raised in South Africa, so this whole thing about ancestors and this whole thing about indigenous people, those are just very, very important, aspects, in my life. And then, around how it can just aid in one's spiritual renewal. I'm an urban, boy, so So, and you know what urban can do to us, and so to be able just to connect and reconnect with that, that ancestral roots. I mean, I hear that, I sense it from you, and I want to affirm that and just celebrate that.
Thank you.
In terms of just the sense of renewal and enlightenment, and now through that being able to extend it, into both connection and compassion with the Taino people, and so that's just as great. So if you can tell us maybe just a little bit about the Taino people, and we're going to show some images, of them, and maybe share a little bit about how the earthquake has affected them. I know we have one of the leaders on standby to join us by phone, and we'll bring her in for a few minutes, but if you can maybe just share a little bit about, who they are and what they're about, and how, they've been just once again challenged, by this natural disaster, that'll be very, very helpful. And then we're going to show some images that you provided for us, as you share.
Okay, great. So they are I can't even pronounce the name. If I did, I probably would disrespect that, so I won't even try. But they are a group of people that stand alone, basically, in their own truth. The truth that the earth is our nurturer. We are nurtured by earth, Madre Tierra, something that they honor. They honor the fire, the sun, the earth, and the water in such a way that you never even thought that was even important to do. But there's such depth to that once you or I or us open up to that and understand that we are all connected by the trees, by the earth, by the roots, and all that is God, really. God created all of this. So we're all connected in that way. However, life takes us away from that, where the indigenous Tainos honor that daily in their practices, in their gatherings, in their ceremonies. And they stand for solidarity and connectiveness. And they want the diaspora, the people from the States, to get to know themselves better, get to know that Taino blood that runs through their bodies. I mean, they can't hide it. They can't. I mean, we're pretty aggressive. We're passionate about everything. And so to be with them is to really feel enlightened. And the reverence that you feel being around them represents that spirit, that pure spirit that honors everything that is God. Everything.
Yes. Can you share with us, Teresa, just a little bit about, how, the earthquakes has affected, the Taino people?
Wow. So I'm always checking in on them. I live in Puerto Rico. I don't know if you know that. I just happen to be here in Florida because of a dear friend of mine that's ill, and I wanted to be here for her, not knowing the extent of what's going on with these earthquakes right now. So, to live in fear of not knowing what's going to happen in the next 5 minutes, because the earth under you is shaking in a way that could actually kill you. You don't know if your walls are going to cave in. You know nothing. And the people of Puerto Rico are living in tents. I mean, we have elders in tents. The Tainos are all in tents, which is kind of normal for them. But they do have homes, and they do have families that they cannot go to. They cannot risk their lives by going into these homes. One family, Taino family, lost everything. Their walls were caving in, and the family had to completely evacuate. So most of them live by the water, and a lot of them had to go to higher ground now. So most recently, a couple of days ago, they were saying that the dam probably might break, and they asked everyone they might evacuate them just to be aware. So it's been a very unsettling, very unsettling. Not knowing what to do next, not even knowing if you should go to sleep because of your fear of what's going to happen while you're sleeping. So it's affecting all of us. And the Taino community is definitely on the streets helping one another and making a difference in their community right now as we speak. But they lost everything from Hurricane Maria. So just when they started to rebuild,
the earthquake
everything is back down again. So it's really they need everything. They're asking and pleading for cots. They're pleading for like a water system on their land that they could have clean water. They are asking for huge industrial tents that they could use for now to have their community come together and not be in the sun. Mm-hmm. So the requests are there, and hopefully long term to be able to rebuild that school.
Yes.
Which is missing because it's educating our children as to who they truly are. The Taino history is missing in a lot of schools of Puerto Rico. So
So again, as I've said earlier on, we in this for the long haul, and we have several partners who are basically on standby to see how we can provide some specific information about specific people in specific places, and glad that we were able to connect around that. We were able to get Abuela on, and so I think we're going to bring her in. You may have to translate for us. She's joining us, from.
She actually speaks English.
Oh, okay. Abuela, are you there? Good afternoon.
I'm here.
Good evening.
Good afternoon.
Yay. Hola.
Hi to everybody.
Yes, we're so glad you're joining us. Can you tell us where you're calling us, where we are calling you from?
You're calling. I'm right now. I'm in Yauco, Puerto Rico.
Mm-hmm.
Basically, I'm near the epicenter of everything that is happening.
Yeah. Tell us. So glad you could join us and know that you are, of course, in our prayers, and we're praying with our eyes open, our hearts open, our hands open, and we're looking forward, to see how we can, discern partnership with you all in terms of both the preservation, of the Taino culture, as well as the infrastructure challenges, how we can support in some form or fashion around that. But tell us just a little bit, Abuela, around how are people doing, what's going on, and how is the community getting by?
Well, right now we just had another tremor a couple of minutes ago. We've been having the earth has been shaking for the past 12 days. Some of them really hard that are felt across the island. And this has affected the community in general because we just passed Maria two years ago. And some of us were without power for more than 6 months for Maria. And right now, this triggered all that memory back again. But it's different from a hurricane. A hurricane comes and it's just a couple of hours and it passes, and you know that you're out of danger. But on earthquake, it's different because it's constantly shaking. It's like Teresa, like she said, that we're in constant fear of what could happen, what is next. Could it be major than a 6.6 that we had on the 7th? We're having a lot of infrastructure that are not going to be inhabitable again. Then we already had damage to the school from Maria, and we were rebuilding little by little. because we don't have any support from government and organization. It's just like we are coming together and we get together by pieces, by faces, trying to do it by ourselves, and it's really challenging. Right now, the main building is completely gone. We need, like you said, like an industrial tent for us to be able to gather our people, since we having some of our people sleeping outdoors. There's a lot of I was talking to her on the phone, and I was saying that we really also need not only the infrastructure, but we need mental health help, because this really has come into the psyches of our people, and there is fear on our children because they don't understand, and also to the elders, because we have a lot of elders in our community also.
Yeah, I know that trauma must be very, very challenging, and also the intergenerational impact that it's having around children, from children to, to the elderly around that, and that's a long-term response that's needed.
And we don't have like that that our elders that lived through the last earthquake, they're already gone. The last big earthquake in Puerto Rico was in 1918, and this is a real new experience to this generation. We're coming to terms to try. It's like I was telling some of the women of our pueblo, of our community, that we have to learn to live with this, because we don't know how much time is going to go keeping on the tremors every day. Last night I went to sleep with a tremor at 10-something, and I woke up with another tremor.
Wow.
Yeah. As we close our time together, Abuela, can you tell us just what are some of the immediate needs? Teresa mentioned some of those, but can you maybe just from you are with the community, what are some of the immediate needs that...
The immediate needs, we need the industrial tent, we need cots also. We need rebuilding that will come later, but we need anything that first aid, anything that could help us go through this in these days.
Yeah. Now that industrial tent, I know, Teresa, you, me, and I, we've been talking about that tent. Just tell us a little bit about that tent, because that's the vision around that tent is kind of it's a large tent, and it's to kind of just be a gathering place, for the community, right?
Yeah.
You want to say just a little bit about that?
So what I've seen is that it's almost built like a house. It's big enough, so it's almost like a wedding tent. You can have a whole wedding party of 100 in there. They're big enough that you can freely create a living space for community and camaraderie and everything that is the feel of being in your own home. Instead of everyone trying to find a spot to talk because of the sun, they have an open field, and it's just pure sun. So they need that covering, so they can utilize the ground that's just basically sitting there because of there's no covering over them. So if we could just start there, it would help immensely.
Right. Absolutely. Teresa, thank you so much for joining us. Abuela, muchas gracias. Thank you so much for joining us. We, as I said, throughout our time together, we're in this together, and certainly our prayers are with you. You have our partnership, and this show was appropriately entitled, Puerto Rico Rising through Resiliency and Solidarity. And I named it that because we wanted to affirm the fact that Puerto Rico will rise again, and it will rise because the people of Puerto Rico is a resilient people, and as we unite in solidarity with them, it then enables us to see how we can play a catalytic role in that rising. And so that's our vision, and that's our commitment as we continue to walk and work together. So thank you so much for joining us.
Can I add something?
Yes.
Just a quick question. This question is for Abuela. Abuela, out of respect, what is the name of the group, the Taino group that you represent?
Concilio Taino Guatumacu Aborican. That means the great fire of the spirit of Borican.
Oh my God, I love it.
All right. Great.
And I
would like to add, in our native language, Hahom Tamin Kakona Wari. That means thank you, God bless you.
Oh, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Yes. Thank you so much. This has been Faith Without Borders. I'm your host, Pastor Calvin Sauls. We want to share with you that we will have more information as to how you can support these grassroots relief efforts. Just check out, the website of our partner, the International Society for Black Latinos, and that website is www.blacklatinos.org. Our goal is to set up a GoFundMe page for the Taínos and that community, as well as for the that faith community in San Germán. And so we want to let you know that. We're closing out with two powerful images of a beautiful girl, that is in one of the communities affected. The picture you see right now, that's the picture of her, and she was just so beautiful that the community decided to create a mural of her. And so that's the mural that they created of her. And you see the scars, that the earthquake caused, of this beautiful girl, which I believe represents the beautiful people in Puerto Rico. And we know that we can once again restore that images with the scars with that beautiful woman. So that's what we're about, and we are grateful for that. This has been Faith Without Borders. I'm your host, Pastor Calvin Sauls. Thank you so much, and we'll see you next time.